We have a lot to talk about today. Giovanni and I are here with Mike Thakur. We'll ask Mike for his actual title, but he does a lot of things. We're here to talk to him primarily about his work in the flexible office industry. But Mike is a man of many passions. And Mike, I'm so excited to be doing this because I've known of you for so long, and I don't think we've ever met. Have we met? You were.
Well, actually, we have met.
Okay. Do we meet at the GWA in the fall?
No, it was a juicy conference. It's the only one that I've been to. Don't tell Liz.
Okay. We won't. Shh.
2016.
Dude, that's a long time ago. Okay.
LA. Yeah, you were speaking at one of the sessions.
Probably. Yes, probably. That goes back. But yeah, I've been super curious about what you're working on. And your team is in our community manager program. And can I tell you how much I love Michelle?
Yeah,
I love
I
them
love
all.
it too. So nobody's stealing Michelle. Okay, let's just make that
Yes,
clear.
no, Michelle is. Yes, nobody wants to recruit her. She's amazing.
Yeah,
She's so good at what she does. I love. Yes, I might have to have her on my podcast. So anyway, you obviously know how to find great people because Eric and Holly are awesome.
It took me like a million, but I found one.
Yeah.
And now I've got maybe two.
Also, in all fairness, you were at the GWA last year in Frisco, and you brought your son with you, who was in the business with you. Yeah,
that's the thing. I try to remember. Did we not talk in the fall? Because I'd invited you to the happy hour that we were doing, and then you couldn't make it. I didn't know you brought your son.
Yeah, we got stuck in traffic. We were going to come hang out with you guys, and so
Okay.
we just got in late. So no, I don't think
Anyway,
I saw you floating around, but I don't think we got to talk.
That's right.
So
okay, let's not that happen again next time we're in the same room. So glad.
So the son is the opposite of Mike. He's got this beautiful, like curly hair, and Mike's obviously got no hair.
Yeah.
You
have a great face for bald though, and you're all like buff and fit, and yeah. And the accent. It's English accent month.
She does this. She does this.
Yeah. That's why
Dude, she's just bothering me up. I'm like a skinny little white. My pants fall off me half the time. I see myself on video and I'm like, dude, I should have put a tighter belt on.
That's a better problem to have than the alternative. Okay. Mike, where should we start? There's a lot of things. Maybe let's start with Flex, and then we can branch out into the rest of
how we got into Flex, right? Because I love this story is because he went to ministry to then security to then this. So I'd love that story, Mike. So why don't you start there?
Yeah. So I think immediately before opening Worklodge, I was working in the security space. We were nicknamed the Secret Service for Billionaires. So we did very unique things for very successful people. And we were most famous for kidnap, ransom, and extortion.
Oh my God. So I thought you meant financial securities, and you meant like physical real security. Holy cow. Okay.
Yeah, not me, but we had people that did that.
Okay.
We had ex-Navy skills.
Yeah, we had a few of those. But I worked from home when I wasn't traveling. I used to travel a lot. And I just woke up one day and thought, you know what? I stay at my own four walls all the time. This isn't good for me. Previously in the UK, I worked for a very large company, big office space, not Google level, lots of people, lots of energy. And I didn't like being on my own, even though I was on the phone a lot. My wife homeschooled, so they were home, but it's just not the same. And this is like 2012, 2013, right? So I have no real estate background. Co-working is not a thing. I don't even know what a flexible office space is. I literally Google like an office for one person, and I wind up at an executive suite. I didn't know that's what it was at the time. I just knew it was an office space. And so I go in, and this lady, she's not arrogant, but she's real confident. I've got one office available, so it's take it or leave it. I said, okay, let me take a look. And so it's an interior, it's four walls, solid drywall, solid wood door. And I'm standing there thinking, this is literally like solitary confinement. This is worse than being at home. At least I've got a window at home.
Yeah.
And then she tells me it's like $800 and something a month. Take it or leave it.
You're like, you want me to pay you to sit in this? Yeah.
So I went home and I said to Linda, my wife, I said, babe, like, I don't know anything about office space. I could not do a worse job than these folks. Like, I didn't see a human being the whole time I was there, other than a lady trying to sell me space. I said, it was full. Like, why don't we build something cool and maybe some other folks want to come hang out with us? And so that's what started it all. I had no idea. I was out doing an extortion case in Washington State, like months later.
We don't get the word extortion on our podcast very often.
It was a good case. It was real interesting. And this guy was a professional. He had
Wait, and
literally
this was
spent
here. This was in the States?
in the US.
Okay.
Yeah. So he had literally worked his way from Florida across the country over a period of about 15 years. And he would go work at a company for a year or two, and then he would extort them, get a payout, and they would move, and they would do it all again. And he literally just trekked his way across. So we got called in when he was in Washington State, and he was an interesting cat. One law firm that he was trying to extort, right? Because that's what you do. You just go straight for the lawyers. They literally had him on camera breaking in, putting water hoses through the windows, turning them on to flood the entire office, wrecked all the computers, all the paper and everything. And when it got in front of a judge, he got away with it because the judge said that this guy was like 6'8" and 350 pounds. Like, he had a frame that you would recognize, but the judge said, you can't see his face directly in any of the camera shots, so you can't prove it's him. So I'm out in Washington State and I come across a co-working space, like a flexible office space. This is like 2013, probably by this point, maybe late 13 going into 14. I'm just noodling because we thought the idea was cool, but the worry was, am I just crazy? Is anyone else going to want to go work in a place like this? I didn't know what to Google because I didn't know what to call it.
No, you know what? So, Mike, I opened my first co-working space in 2012. So I signed my lease at the very beginning of 2012. I signed my lease in 2011. There was nothing on the internet at the time. Right. Yeah. Now there's so much. It was not a thing to Google, what is this? And how do I start one? Yeah.
And how much am I going to spend? And
what does the business model look like? 100%. Yeah.
So I stumble across this space and I go in it, and it's a WeWork. It's like number 4, I think. And it's in Washington State. It's 2 floors and it's huge. And there were people there. That's the only thing I remember. Like, I don't remember a whole lot about the space. Obviously, it was the typical glass and frames and everything else. All I remember is there was people there. And then a couple of days later, I was in Portland on that same trip. And so now I went and searched for flexible office space, and I found another one in Portland. It was much smaller, mom and pop coffee shop on steroids. But there was people there. And I remember calling Linda and I said, babe, like, I found these 2 spaces. There was people in both of them. I think we've got a good idea. Like, I really think people are going to go for this. And so I came back to Houston and I started looking for space. And that's how Worklodge was born.
And so how did you end up, because your first space is the one up north, right? Or no, right. That's the Springs was the Springs/Woodlands was the second one.
So Vintage Park was number 1, yeah. Northwest side.
So, okay. So how did you end up there of all places? And so Jamie, you haven't seen it, but it's in this, and I'll let Mike talk about it more, but it's in a really cool mixed use kind of retail project with a bunch of amenities.
Yeah, obviously office buildings aren't my thing. Again, I got no real estate background at all. The only office buildings I've ever worked in have been single company, own the whole building. And so we started looking at space, and I didn't want to go downtown. I live in the burbs. I got 3 little kids. Why would I want to drive all the way? The whole point to me was,
especially in Houston, right? Bad traffic, hard to navigate.
Yeah. And then this is all selfishly Mike, right? I wanted to be close to some decent food. I wanted to be close to home. I didn't want to deal with traffic. So it's like, hey, here's this development. It's 500,000 square feet, mixed use lifestyle center. It's class A. Like, there's 5 restaurants within 3 seconds of walking. I don't have to touch my car. This looks like a good place to be. And we got talking to them. We actually signed a lease on, it was 4,000 square feet. And then we were going to add a mezzanine layer to get us to about 7,000 plus. And we started work on it. And the mezzanine got installed. And it took about 4 or 5 months through this process for that to happen. And through that time, I just started to feel more and more confident. I'm a faith guy, right? You pray about this kind of stuff.
Did you get a God wink?
Kind of I'm sorry?
Did you get a God wink?
I call them.
It just felt like it was a God idea. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. And so I remember talking to Linda one day saying, babe, what if we got this wrong and it's not big enough? What if this thing is really going to... I'd sold nothing. I had like two guys.
Oh, I love it. Most people are like, what if I got it wrong and it's giant and no one will buy it? That's what most people say when they get to that point. I love it.
I was the complete opposite. And so I talked to the leasing guy and I said, hey, have you got any bigger space? You know? And he said, yeah, sure I have. Let me show you. Here's one that's 59,000 feet. And I said, okay, hang on a second, Tiger. You know, we're not going from 7 to 59. What can we do here? So we agreed. It was a very large space. It was an awkward space. The buildings were very deep. And so they were having a hard time leasing the frontage because no one wanted to go that deep. So I said, I'll tell you what, we'll take the corner and get us some frontage, but we'll take the donut hole in the middle, all the space that no one else wants. Let's figure out a rate that works for you, but that works for us as well. And I think that was really the way we could afford to even be there, because obviously it's expensive space. But we blended the rate of the not so nice with the nice. And obviously for the members, it's great because if you want the quiet, we just go deeper back. There's no foot traffic, there's no nothing. We've designed it with lots of windows between the offices and things as well. So it feels like you've got some windows, even though they're not really natural light. And so we literally, through a number of interesting conversations and a couple of heated ones, we canceled out the lease on the 7,000 square feet and signed a new one on what is now 23,500 feet. And so we started construction at 23.5, and everybody thought we were lunatics.
Totally. Your wife was like, sure, babe.
Maybe not quite, but again, we prayed about it. We stood in the building straight up, and we just stood there and we prayed, and we just said, look, is this going to be okay? Either way, if this doesn't work, I'm screwed. Whether it's 7,000 feet,
there's 7 or
8,000 feet, I'm going to go bankrupt no matter what.
You're a magnitude of more screwed.
Yeah, I guess. But,
I'm just saying. Okay, let's.
No, you're right. Listen, I had some sleepless nights over it. I'm telling you, once construction was nearly finished and we were close to the end, I remember lying in bed like I was just awake. Not quite a panic attack, but more than a little sweat, thinking, dude, what have you done? Like, what have you done?
I think those are the worst feelings. There might be worse, but like that when you're an entrepreneur and you just have this, what is this gonna work out? And nobody's giving you a paycheck if it doesn't. It's not. Right. That's okay, Mike. Next project.
But at this point, Linda's gotten used to this, and we'll get into more details on that. But I think this is not Mike's first crazy idea. I know that for sure because
there's some other crazy things that I see on his LinkedIn. Okay, I have to skip to the punchline, but I do want to know what the first few months were like. The punchline is that we used you as an example. I use you as an example a lot in our community manager group. We just did a Google review challenge in the group because some people just, as often as I talk about it, do not understand how important Google reviews are. I'm like, hey, okay, Google co-working in Houston. What stands out? What stands out? Worklodge stands out. You have over 200 5-star reviews on your Google business listings. Like, nobody, who's not going to tour you?
I mean, I would think so, right? I think actually both sites, I think one's over 2 and one's close to 2. I mean, look, we're the oldest dogs in Houston. There's no co-working space older than us.
I don't mean, but still, the work you've done and the goodwill you have with your members to get those reviews is fantastic. Anyway, tell us a little bit about early days. I'm also curious in terms of real estate deals. So you negotiated a blended rate on the rent. Did you know to ask for ramp up time? Did you have some time to get people in the space? And
I was very fortunate so I didn't have a real estate broker, and I worked directly with the home. I'm sorry.
I said, don't try this at home.
We were very fortunate that the leasing folks who worked for the landlord were used to dealing with mom and pops. Okay. That was what they specialized in. And they took us through that process, and we had a lot of conversations about what made sense. I think at the time I didn't know that I was asking for a ramp up period, but practically, obviously, I was asking for some time to get open and then some steps so we could start going. We were just very transparent. Hey, look, it's a big thing for us. I think we've got a good idea. You think we've got a good idea. I'm guessing it's going to take us a certain amount of time to get people in, and we want to be able to pay rent. So why don't we make it so that everybody's happy and nobody's unhappy? And that's what we did.
So was it Dunhill at the time, or did Dunhill buy it after?
No, it was Dunhill. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Jamie, Dunhill's actually a Dallas-based retail developer, super eccentric guy that has got himself in some legal trouble here in the last few years that we will not dive into on this. But yeah, they own shopping centers across the really Texas, and so they're used to doing a bunch of creative deal structures like that. He's actually a big investor on some restaurants. He actually, the Virgin Hotel here in Dallas, he actually did that one as well. So he's a good landlord for him to start with.
Wait, so was that first location the one that has the slide?
It is the one that has the slide in it. Yes, ma'am.
What was the moment that you were like, you know what? These ceilings are really tall. We should do a slide.
So we knew that we wanted to create an environment that when you walked in, you just felt happy to be there. The idea was that you didn't want to go to just a dull, gloomy, typical, boring office, but something that would give you a sense of energy when you walked in. And we wanted to be a little bit playful. Google pulled off a slide. I figured, why can't we? But putting a slide in an office space is not as easy as you would think. So
I wonder what the insurance company thought about the slide.
It's the slide companies. So we had 4 slide companies that all refused to sell us a slide once they found out it was going in an office space. So we'd get in the conversation, we'd go down the road a little bit because they don't want the liability of being sued.
Huh. Oh, because they thought people in corporate people were more likely to sue than people like, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it came from Canada.
Oh, you know what? Okay, I have to, then Gio, you should go. I was just thinking, so we went to Banff last year, family holiday. And we stayed mostly at Airbnbs. So we stayed at a couple, actually, even the Airbnbs, like they were in these giant like apartment complexes, and the common areas either in the hotel or in the Airbnb complex all had water slides, giant water slides. And I was like, this would never happen in the US because everyone would sue. It's totally unmanned. It's like the one in the hotel. It was yes. Why am I echoing? Anyway. So of course you got it from Canada because Canadians are like, yeah, water slides for everyone. It's all good.
Yeah.
Okay. Gio, transition us.
Well, I also, while we're on the slide, also one of the really cool things that he did that I love the story on is the upside down umbrellas hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah.
So where did you get those from?
We built the space and it's a retail space, right? So it's 25-foot metal ceilings. And I didn't know better, so we didn't do anything for sound.
Yeah.
And we've got tile on the floor. We've got offices, conference rooms around that kind of perimeter of the front zone and a metal roof. So we open and it's a little harsh. We tried a few different things. We couldn't figure it out. And so over the course of a few years, we finally talked to someone. The picture behind Gio there has an acoustical spray foam. To deaden the sound. So we talked to a company about that to see if we could retrofit at the Vintage location. And they kind of looked at me and said, yeah, we're not going to be able to do that. You can't cover all this stuff up. Like this stuff is like glue. It's going to go everywhere. You've got no chance.
Oh no.
So we sit back and we say, okay, what are we going to do? We've got to get something on that ceiling that's going to absorb sound. So we had the idea. We've got a lot of beams and eye joists and whatever running across. What if we just flip some umbrellas upside down and fill them with insulation? So we can create some kind of barrier for the sound waves to just soak into. And so literally I hired a lift one day from Sunbelt at the weekend. Me and a buddy of mine, we went up and down and we hung umbrellas everywhere we could. There's like, I don't know, 50, 60 umbrellas up there. And then we
oh my God.
With,
that's brilliant. It's so creative.
You see the picture I just put up? You can see a few of them up there.
Yes,
but
if
there's
you're
more
watching
than
on
that.
YouTube, you can see a great photo. You can see the slide in the background. Those ceilings are so tall. I do see the mezzanine. So you put a mezzanine in.
Yeah,
wow.
Just a little one. Yeah,
yep.
Just to give us really an excuse to get to the slide.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, the umbrellas are so creative and they make me think of Mary Poppins. They totally go with the slide vibe.
People love them. Especially visitors and guests, that's the number one thing. They look up and be like, oh, wow. And that'll be a conversation starter
Right.
for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in this room, there's conversations started, and this is a good transition point. But this wall, if you're looking again at the slide I got up, there you've got this wall over my right shoulder. You want to talk about that ministry and what you do and what the passion of your heart is?
Yeah. So my wife and I have been involved in nonprofits for a number of years, done some church stuff, done some not church stuff. And so when we started Worklodge, we thought, why don't we build a business and we'll build a 501c3 at the same time, and we'll just use the business to fund the 501. That way we can do really cool projects. I'm not built for politics. That's just not me. I'm not a schmoozer. Like, I'm a quiet guy. So I don't have to ask anybody's permission. I don't need to take a vote. We can just go do whatever we want to do. And so that wall that Gio's talking to there, so it's called FT5K, Feed the 5,000 is what it's short for. And we've done a number of different things over the years. We built some children's homes out in India. So for a while, some of the pictures of the kids are on the wall. We have photo frames around the space from projects we've done, water well projects, feeding projects. We have a feeding program in Houston. We've given away, I think we're going to hit almost $11 million in food that we've given away now over the lifespan of that with some partners that we work with. And in fact, my wife and kids, my 2 older ones, are going to Guatemala on Friday for a project out there that we funded through Worklodge. We're giving some beds to some kids, a bunch of shoes, bought a bunch of seed for some farmers and stuff who literally had fields and couldn't afford the seed to plant the grain. And it's, dude, come on, how much is it? Okay, we'll just write the check. So they're going to go out there and have some fun doing that. I hate traveling, so that's fine by me. I can stay home and they can go have their fun. But we don't shout about it too much, but we wanted it to be visible. So even the conference rooms are actually named after nonprofits we work with. So we have an FT5K room because that's obviously us. And then we have some other rooms like Love Does is a friend of mine, Bob Goff, out of California. They do some great stuff overseas. We helped them with a school campus project in Uganda last year with some infrastructure out there. We didn't fly out to go see it because that's way too far for me to get on a plane. But we want the members to know that when they choose us, we have this kind of jokey tagline. We say workspace changing lives, right? That's the tagline of the space. And it sounds corny, but on a very small scale, we genuinely believe that's what we're doing. And we see it as a double entendre because I don't think we're just changing the lives of the people that we help through the nonprofit work. We talk to the staff a lot, and I've really tried to infuse through the onboarding and through the training and that kind of stuff that we get people who care about the lives of our members. And even just being kind and showing interest, genuine interest in the life of the people we serve every single day, I think that can be life-changing for some folks because you don't get that. You don't see that. We don't treat them as dollar signs. We really don't upsell very well. We don't nickel and dime on a bunch of stuff. If you're in, and we'll pretty much do whatever we can for free for the most part. And could we monetize a little bit better? Probably. But from a DNA of who we are and who we want to be, my hope is that people will work in a Worklodge and leave a Worklodge, but look back on their time there thinking there was something different about that team. There was something different about that space. And hopefully, maybe even have made some changes in the way they run their business and the things that they do, not to imitate me. Go do it way better. Do what you do and be you, but find a way to give back. And so I wrote a book last year about this concept. It's all about this project that I call it, of building a business for impact and purpose, and thinking of your businesses as a vehicle for society's gain, not Mike's gain or your gain. Obviously, I get a paycheck and we do okay, but we could do a whole lot better. But we don't because we choose to do other things instead. And that's really where the passion comes from, of just being around entrepreneurs, being around business. Now we're working on something that takes that to a different level, to try and find more entrepreneurs that have that heart, so we can build a tribe, if you like, of folks beyond the walls of a Worklodge that want to go change the world. And let's figure out how we can do that together.
And he skipped over this, right? And so I'll tell you, Bob Goff is, I joke around about how Bob Goff is my spirit animal. I literally, and I think, Mike, you and I had this conversation. So So Bob Goff is a best-selling author that basically the name of his book is Love Does, and so he talks about just meeting people where they are and loving them where they are. But this guy literally has a cell phone written in the back of his book and actually answers his cell phone. But I think he went to 4 different cities in a 1 week period here in Texas, and I followed him to every city. But he actually also does a writing workshop where he helps people write books. And you went through that, right? And that's how you wrote that's how you met him. That's how you started doing work with him.
Yeah. So I was writing the book at the time, and I came across the workshop, and I thought it'd be fun to go see if I get a little bit of help to put pen to paper. And me and Bob, I think we've got a similar heart. So he was an entrepreneur. He was a lawyer, corporate lawyer out of Washington State for most of his life. But then he started to work on projects more and more till the point where the projects were taking up more time than the legal stuff. And now he focuses on that stuff entirely. And hopefully I can be a little bit like Bob when I grow up. But yeah, he's a character.
What's your book?
No, so my book's called Mic Drop. It's obviously a play on the name, but yeah, it's just all about this idea of fusing faith and kingdom perspective with the entrepreneurial life, and just trying to help people see that what if there was a different reason that you've got a business and it wasn't for you, but it was for others? What would that look like? And how can you make the most of it?
And where can they find the book?
Amazon, I guess Audible, all those kind of places. Yeah, you can. I think you can get it on my website as well if you want. But Amazon should look at me.
Cool. We'll include it in the link for sure.
Oh, we can give books away if folks want it. I didn't write to sell the thing and make money, so whatever you want to do.
Yeah. No, perfect. And you're in Nashville now, right?
I just saw that on your LinkedIn.
Jamie doesn't know this story. Yeah, so how did you get to Nashville?
Yeah, so it's all Bob's fault. Okay. So that's how this works. So when we first came to America in the 90s, because my wife and I have been around a few years, we spent 3 months in Nashville working with a drug rehabilitation program called Teen Challenge. And we loved it. We were supposed to come back and work with them permanently, couldn't get the visas and stuff, forgot about it. Life moved on. And we've been in Houston nearly 20 years. And Bob was holding an event here at the Marathon Music Works last October. So we came out with the kids and we had some fun there for a couple of days. And while we were here, we've been talking on and off for, I guess, honestly, COVID was probably quite challenging for me personally. I think I don't have partners, I don't have investors and all that kind of stuff. The business didn't take a massive hit, but it did take a hit, as most businesses did. And in the middle of it, you feel very alone, or at least I did. And you don't really know what's going to happen, right? Where's it going to go? I'm not from America. I haven't lived and grown through economic cycles here like I have in the UK. So I'm still learning. We moved here in 2001 for a couple of years. We came back in 2007, 2008. So like my first few real years with kids was the recession of 2008, 2009. And here we are again with this COVID thing. And so I think, I don't know if I've really got over that or not, but I think it changed my perspective a little bit on life. And obviously we've got a great workspace here and we've got great people on the team and I get in the way more than anything else. And so we started to just noodle and think, okay, if we were going to make a change and think about living somewhere other than Houston, like at what point in life would we do that? My oldest is 18, 19. If we wait a few more years, just practically, that's going to be challenging because kids are going to be more established, more settled and everything else. So we joked on and off for about a year or so, hey, what if Houston wasn't the next 50 years? So we come to this thing with Bob and we're out here in Nashville. And of course, it's beautiful, right? It's not Houston. It's October, it's cool breezes, it's not humid. And so we just started to noodle on the idea. So we flew back a couple of times just to look around a little bit more and think, okay, do we want to make a move? And then we decided we'll come one last time with the kids. We scheduled a trip in January and we said, okay, we're going to go for a few days. We'll go look at some houses. We'll go look at some homeschool groups and things. And as a family, we can decide, hey, we want to just take a step here. We think God's nudging us to do something. We've been feeling a little bit itchy and we're not really sure why. So we were flying on the Thursday. So Wednesday, Linda gets an email from Zillow. Hey, new houses on the market. We've already got 2 days of house hunting scheduled with the realtor. 5 houses on Thursday, 5 on Friday. So she gets this email, and here's this house is burned down. And she sends it to me and says, Mike, what do you think? Could be a fun project, right? And so I said, well, it could be. It says the foundation's reusable and it's on 5 acres. So I sent it to my realtor. I said, Sam, just add it to the list. We're already going to be in the area. We'll go check it out on Friday. Didn't think anything else of it. So on Thursday, we look at a bunch of houses in some nicer parts of town, and they're pretty expensive. And one of them is like, dude, it is a dog. The door frames are kicked off the walls, like holes in the walls. This thing's $2 million, right? And I'm looking at my realtor like, dude, what's going on? If this is the level of houses and what they cost here, I'm staying in Houston because I can't do this. This is way too much. And he said, Mike, don't panic. This is not what it's like. He said, this is something that should be like Zillow Gone Wild. This is not what Nashville's. And I'm sitting there and I said, what's Zillow Gone Wild? And he says, oh, you need to go check this website out. It's all the crazy stuff on Zillow. So we're back in the Airbnb at night, and my oldest comes out of his room a couple hours later. And he says, Dad, holding his phone up, isn't this the house we're looking at tomorrow? And sure enough, this house that burned down hit Zillow Gone Wild on Thursday afternoon and took like 400,000 views in 2 hours or something ridiculous. So now everybody's talking about it and looking at it. And I'm thinking, we're going to get a bargain. We get there Friday morning. He's already had multiple offers on the house. Like the owner's out here himself trying to sell the thing. It's $1.5 million, right? And it's burnt down. So it's an interesting situation. So here's me trying to do my best haggling gig, because I'm thinking if we don't nail this down now, like we're not getting it. There's a guy flying in from out of state Friday night to come look at this thing. So anyway, we figure it out. I didn't get a dime off it. And we signed a contract Friday afternoon. And so we thought, hey, if we're going to rebuild a house that's burned down, we might as well grab some content and we'll make a YouTube channel out of it. So that's what we've been doing for the last couple of months. Yeah.
Okay. I can't wait to check that out. We will put that link also in the show notes.
It's fine. You don't need to link it. Trust me. It went so viral. I spent a week doing TV interviews with news crews across the world.
That's
like
so interesting.
England, everything. Yeah. Everybody was fascinated about why you'd buy a house. But dude, it's like, it's a serious piece of land. And
so is it done?
Oh no.
Okay.
We've got windows in, so that's the start. But that hasn't been shown on YouTube yet. So that's like next week, folks.
Okay.
You're gonna have to hold your horses. But
okay.
But yeah, no, it's coming along. All the demos done, and now it's starting to rebuild. So we had to gut half the house. The roof was shot, like half the right side was gone. All the plumbing, everything came out. And then now plumbing's gone back in, electrical's going in, AC's going back in, the roof's on, windows are in. So yeah, it's been a fun project.
Wait, so are you in a rental in the meantime, or where do you live?
Yeah. No, so actually, there you have it. Yeah. The house has a guest house behind it. So we're actually living in the guest house. Yeah.
Oh, I see. This is so interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's down in Franklin, which is where you want to be in Nashville. So super cool.
Oh my gosh. And you're super fun family. They're into it.
Yes.
I mean, they help, but yeah.
They're into the idea of it. But when it comes to actually 10 hours of graft, they're adjusting.
Yeah. So I saw that come through, and you wear so many different hats, right? You've got the podcast, you've got the ministry, you've got the flex space. You're just a serial entrepreneur, right? The book, everything else. And so that's why when I told Jamie, I was like, you have no idea how many different levels there is to Mike. And so it was exciting.
I'm trying to figure out who I want to be when I grow up. I still haven't got it figured out.
So while you're in Nashville, what's the plan with the workspaces? Obviously, they're running on their own. And is there any, I know at one point you were looking to grow further. You looked the franchising route. You've done some different things. Kind of where are you? Is there a Worklodge Nashville in the future, or what kind of where you at in that?
I think it's a really interesting question. We won't be franchising again, I can tell you that. We've had some conversations with a couple of folks here. We've seen a couple of buildings that looked interesting. I don't know. I think it's possible. Is it a definite? We've got our hands full with the house, and there's still a few unknowns left. It was hard to really plan and budget for something when you don't know how much you're going to demolish and what the engineers are going to want us to replace. So I think we've got one more visit from the structural engineer that I'm stressing about a little bit. But for the most part, I think we've got all the bad stuff picked out and replaced with new or sisted up or whatever with some things to strengthen it. I think once we've got a handle on this from a budgeting perspective, another month or two, we can start to think about, okay, do we feel confident? But also there's a lot of noise about commercial real estate right now. So I think selfishly, I'm curious to see whether it does retract a little bit. And if it does, maybe we can get a more favorable deal for us. Or I think really we'd like to own a building. You know, I've had as much fun as I like to have with landlords. I think owning a building would make a lot more sense, and it gives you a lot more freedom to just control the experience, because that's the challenge, right? Doesn't matter how well we can work to do something. My Woodlands building, Geo, you walk into a 4-story office building. I don't control that experience. I don't control the doors. I don't control the ground level. And that's a problem for me, because we work so hard and so intentionally to really think about the details. And we really do think about things that most people probably don't. You know, what it smells like when you walk in, the sound, the ambience, the music. I still curate the playlists myself manually. We don't have automated anything, because I want a certain thing. It's G-rated. It's going to be positive. It's going to be uplifting. It's not going to be anything that somebody could hopefully take offense at when they walk through the door. And so there's so much of that I can't control beyond my 2 doors that I think if we were going to grow again, I'd like to see if I could do better at that. Vintage is better because we do control it. Other than the parking lot, you walk in my doors first and that's it. It's my team that can meet and greet.
Value. Yep.
Yeah. It's just, it depends what you're trying to do here. But the experience, it matters. How we do things. Again, I'm a faith guy. The Bible says do everything as if you're doing it for God, right? I always joke internally, some of my team believe what I believe, some of them don't, and that's fine. But when I have conversations with myself, I always think, if Jesus had an office here, would we treat him any different? Would he have got a better deal? Because if he would, it's not right. And then we should have done the same for someone else. We wrestle with pricing a lot because it's a dynamic pricing model, but we didn't want to be dynamic. I don't want the guy next to someone else having paid a different price. And it's been really hard to figure that out. And we don't have a good answer because there isn't one. But for years, we just held firm and lost some deals because of it, because some folks just want a deal. But I really don't, it doesn't sit well with me at night, thinking that someone's paying me more for the same size of space as someone else. But I understand the supply and demand and everything else as well. So it's just something I've wrestled with internally.
Yeah. And I think you find yourself in a situation like so many other people right now that are trying to pivot and strategize and reset and really reconsider what their why is. Why are they doing what they're doing? And do they still want to keep doing it? Because the world has changed in so many ways. And you're 100% right, is delivering an experience is what it's about, right? And so you got everything from other flex space operators all the way through the enterprises trying to figure out what their employees need and want, right? How do we get them back in the office? Really, it's getting them to want to come back in, not having to impose and force new policies. And so it's definitely a unique place in all of our careers to be here and figure out the next steps.
Yeah, I think society is definitely asking that question.
Yeah.
Or why?
So actually, so being back in Nashville, are you still, or what's the involvement with the drug facility that you mentioned earlier? Is there one? Are y'all doing anything with them, or that was just part of the story?
With who? Sorry.
You mentioned that when y'all were in Nashville, you volunteered for a drug facility, or
oh yeah.
So is that still around? Are y'all still volunteering there? Is there any involvement there?
It is still around. And actually, we had lunch with the folks who ran it when we were here in the 90s. And they're like, 80 and 79 now, still firecrackers and just crazy people. That was neat. Well, I think we're going to go visit with them again in a week or so, but we haven't met with the folks who run it now. But we are starting to make friends and make connections with groups out here that are working on different things. I met some guys doing some work with autism, which was fun. And so we helped them with something. We just did a new roof for a family that were in need, because we thought it'd be fun if we're building a roof on our house, we'll build a roof for someone else. Just looking for different opportunities where we can hopefully just give back a little and be a blessing. And it's because of Worklodge, right? Because it pays for it. So if it wasn't for that, we couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll actually have to offline. I'll connect you. I've got some of my best friends live down there. They were in East Nashville. He was actually played in the MLB. So he played in the majors, and the sound was, I think they said he lived in 83 different places to make it to the majors. And his wife, who's a great friend of mine, she was pregnant with her third when he was there, and she was like, "We're done. I'm not moving again." And since then they've had a fourth, but they've settled down in Nashville, and they love it. And it's just, they've got all kinds of deep ties there. So I'll definitely have to connect y'all. And funny enough, which is the next one. So his nickname in the MLB was actually Tatman. So he's tatted
really?
from neck to knuckles and everything else. Do you have a theme to your tattoos, or is it just kind of what's going on in life, or kind of how do you pick and choose what you're putting on your body permanently?
So I do have a theme. It's taken me a long time to get to where I'm at. So we started on this arm over here. We're going to do the history of tats. So I started with the cross on its own, and we added some filler around it. So this is my kind of Jesus arm, if you want to call it that. Yeah, obviously the cross has meaning. So you come down here. I don't know whether you can see that, but you see that line face there. Yeah. So this whole line of Judah kind of concept. And then there's a lot of verses in the Bible that talk about trees, tree of life. There's verses that talk about you'll be like a tree planted by a stream. Even when tough times come, you're going to be watered and that kind of thing. So this is my kind of tree. And one of the verses there, Jeremiah 17:8. And then just inside my most recent one here, you've got this idea he's going to come back. The Bible talks about him coming back on a white horse and everything. So this is my Jesus arm. So then my left arm is my water arm. So this starts off with, so this is Noah's Ark.
Okay.
See that or not? And then this goes down into Moses in the Red Sea. So here's my little Moses dude. I'll try and get a closer shot for you. I talk about my tats very often. So kind of part in the Red Sea there. This goes down to this idea of the dove. And then this is the baptism idea of water again. And Jesus just standing there being baptized. We go onto the inside here. And I've got the hand of God for creation happening over here. And then this idea of a compass, because everything was planned from the get-go.
So are these all like custom, like you have to walk the artist through what your vision is, and then wow.
Yeah, so I didn't have it all to begin with. It was just obviously pieces and trying to get things to flow together. So I'd go sit with him and say, hey, look, here's some ideas, like here's some pictures, this is what I want to do. So it was hard because it's a lot easier to say, hey, here's a tat that I like, can you go recreate it? And some of the best tattoo guys, there's a guy called Mike Cruz out in Houston, and dude, his work is, I've never seen anything like it. You should look him up on Instagram just for fun. But he has a style, and it's the only thing he does, and it's Roman Greek gods. Mm-hmm. And I probably think he's the best in the world at what he's doing. It's $4,000 for one session with this guy.
The power of
that's
niche.
What he does. And to find somebody who can go on the fly and then try and recreate what you're trying to do, and then obviously try and connect dots, fit it in. Yeah, it took a little while, but yeah, it is what it is. So I started when I was 40.
We have some overlap. So I've got the lion and the lamb. Jamie, I don't know if you've ever seen them.
No, I haven't seen it. Look inside, at that lion. It's beautiful. Wow.
Inside is actually the lighthouse, and with the waves and everything. And then the God is greater than the highs and lows. But basically the lighthouse is, we're called to be light for others, right? It is just the same way as our faith is for us. And so, yeah, I think it's so cool just to be able to hear people's stories. And occasionally I talk to people, I'm like, so what do your tattoos mean? They're like, oh, I don't know. I just sit down and tell him to do whatever he wants. And it's this is on your body forever. You don't have a story to, I mean, make something up.
Yeah.
Right.
And, I think it's such a big representation of how I use mine to coach people, right? So I tell people, especially when I'm coaching men, is you got lions and lambs, right? Some men are really good lions and they're strong and bold and courageous, but they are impatient, unloving, unkind, manipulative, right? And it's, which are you from that standpoint? And then the lamb is meek and gentle, and sometimes that can be weakness and poor leadership and everything else. And so goal is to be a mixture of the lion and the lamb, right? And so lots of times I'll call my guys, be like, okay, are you a lion or a lamb today? And I had a guy I called last week, and he's bah, bah. So it's interesting how we can use art like that to basically touch people. So what's next for you? You've got all kinds of fun stuff going on. And so obviously you're going to finish the house. And what any secret projects you're working on that you want to let us in on?
I think the biggest thing we're working on right now is really trying to think through more of the book side of stuff, the Kingdom Entrepreneur stuff, and think about, we may do an event here in the fall where we would do not like a conference. I'm a pretty quiet soul. I'm not a big stage and whatever else, but a smaller, intimate roundtable type couple days with some other business owners and entrepreneurs who really want to do something different and are willing to put their money where their mouth is, because that's the challenge. It sounds great, and I talk about this in the book. When you say things like, "Hey, I'm going to use my business, but I'm going to fund this, or I'm going to give to that," but when you start adding zeros, it starts to get really hard. And I've never thought of myself as being a particularly selfish person, but I know even on the projects we've done and the things that we've worked on, especially like now where there's a lot of pressure. This thing's costing a fortune. I'm still running a business in Houston. We've got other pressures just because of some of the COVID stuff, and a little bit more about that. But you think through those and you think, okay, but I made a commitment that I want to be able to do these things, and I don't want to shirk back from that. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, a lot of people like the idea of doing good when you've actually got to write the check and say, okay, hey, when I write this check, this means I can't have X. Like, I don't get a lady house, or I don't get a beach house, or I don't get another car in the garage because this needs it more, whatever. I think that's where you find a lot of people stop and say, hang on a second, I don't need to go quite that crazy. There's plenty of other people doing good. I can just do this. And they'll retract back. So I'm really trying to figure out, how do I find another few folks who I can make. I like to make friends. So who else can I make friends with that together, hopefully they're smarter than me, hopefully they're a little bit further along than me, and I can ride their coattails selfishly, but also together I think we can achieve a whole lot more than on our own. And so I'll give you a great example of this. I made friends with some folks at an event. They're in the eye business. They run a very small eyeglass manufacturing company out of Pennsylvania. I don't even know if they do 7 figures a year in revenue. Very small, super nice couple, super sweethearts. We've got to know them a little bit over a couple of years. And, you know, they've been around. We invited them out here in October when we came to the event for Bob. So they hung out with us here, and they've seen some of the things that we've done and been involved with. So he called me up one day and he said, Mike, we really want to build an eye clinic out in Uganda. I said, oh, okay, interesting. We just help with a school line out in Uganda. Right? Tell me more. And he said, we've got this friend and she's on the radio and she's a big deal. So remember the movie Sleepless in Seattle, where he calls into this radio host? That radio host was mirrored on this real life radio host. So she's got a real show. It's one of the biggest in America, and it's a call-in show. And so they said, hey, we've got this radio personality that's friendly with us. And she has this home that she's built out in Africa, and they do all these different things to help children, help people, whatever. But we want to put an eyeglass clinic in there and help people with vision. I said, okay, what's it going to cost? So they told me it was like $100,000 or something. It wasn't crazy. So I said, okay, I'll tell you what. I said, I'm not going to pay for it, but I'll pay for some of it. So go see who else you can get. And we could have done it. And honestly, normally we probably would have, but for whatever reason, that moment, it just felt it wasn't for us to just rob other people of the privilege of being a part of this one. And so they went away, called me back a few months later, and he said, okay, great news. I need this from you, and I've got this and this. And so by the time this is now finished, one of the largest manufacturers of eye testing equipment in America is on board. They're going to help, and they're going to contribute towards some of the cost. Linda and I are able to do some heavy lifting as well. And long story short, it's fully funded. The clinic's going to happen. And I think they're flying out there in October or November or something to open it. And I want to be around more of that. I want to be around more people because I can't do all that stuff on my own. And I sure ain't going to fly out there to open it. If I can get someone else to do 20 hours on a plane and I don't have to, that is awesome. And I'm all about it. So that's my top secret agenda that I'm working on, is how to put something on here where we can have a round table with some really great people who want to go do amazing things, and together we can go be amazing.
I think that's a really cool tiny to the flexible workspace industry, right? I mean, is when you have a community, you have a mission and a vision, right? Whether it be just to serve people inside those four walls, kind of like you mentioned, is having people that sit next to each other that are all paying the same price and that are engaging. It can be as small as that, or it can be as big as Wells in Uganda, like Mike and the Fuse team do, or like you're out doing there in Nashville with people, or even bigger than that, right? What you've done with Bob or your book or any of that stuff. And so I think that's the really cool part. And that's really where we're living our purpose, right? Whatever that may be, is when we're truly serving others, and it's beyond us.
Right. I think so. And I think that's the beauty of workspace, particularly flexible workspace, because that's really the heart of what it's supposed to be about. If you take away the numbers and everything else and just think about what we're doing, this is a service business. We're here to serve. We're here to try and help other people be the best version that they can be of themselves, of their business. And we do that by taking away friction. We do it by taking away noise, and hopefully by putting them in an environment where they surround themselves with other people that they can get to know and do some cool stuff with. We had a guy who met someone at the space. It's only happened once that I know of. And he had his business, this other guy had his business, and they became friends and they actually started a new business together. And so then now they had this third business, and I wish it happened more. Maybe it has, and I don't know about it, but I thought it was pretty cool. And I'm glad that we were able to be a part of that. Hopefully it turned into something decent. But if it didn't, it wasn't my fault. But if it did, it wasn't my fault either. We're just a connector.
That's an example on one end of the spectrum, but we talk about this a lot. And you mentioned it at the beginning of our conversation, like just creating a place where people can feel less alone and they feel seen and they can build a community is a big deal. And you said life-changing, right? Yeah, that can totally change people's lives and help them to do bigger things and live more of their purpose. So it can be a lot of small things that make a big difference.
Yeah, it usually is lots of small things. I tell the staff all the time, it's never the big things that are going to get us caught out. It's going to be a combination of little things. So pay attention to those.
Awesome. Okay, Gio, we got to wrap.
We appreciate you joining us, and I look forward to seeing more about Jamie's going to go read about the mansion.
Totally, and I am.
Look forward to seeing more of that and the book and everything else. So we really appreciate your time, Mike.
Yeah.
No, listen, thanks for having me on. And Jamie, I think, Gio, obviously you and I know each other a little bit more, but for Jamie, I just want to say thank you for what you do with the Community Minded University. As a small operator, there's only so much that I can do to teach someone. I don't have all the answers. I don't have a hospitality background and whatever else. So I can help teach DNA, but there's things I can't. And having something else out there, I think was definitely needed. And Michelle's always spoken really positively of the sessions and things that she's been involved with. So I'm sure there's countless other folks like me out there. And it really it really makes a big difference. So I know as entrepreneurs, we don't get told thanks a whole lot, but thank you. I genuinely mean that.
Thank you, Mike. This was amazing. Thank you. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate you guys.